Hi friends, my channel is called Minivan Muse. I travel in my 2023 Honda Odyssey named Betty White, and we travel around the country to beautiful places, interesting places, and I'm happy that you're here to travel along with us. Finally, hitting the road. What a great feeling. Only had a week to travel and didn't have a real concrete plan, but I started out heading north out of Los Angeles, hit the high desert area where you could still see some snow on the mountains, and then headed east on Interstate 15. The first night I stayed at a rest area on Interstate 15. Very quiet. No problems. I didn't get to sleep till like 3:30, but I noticed that first night I'm out on a trip, if I haven't been out for a couple weeks or a couple months, it's really hard to go to sleep. It's not hard to stay asleep, it's just hard to go to sleep, probably because I'm just really excited to be back out on the road. That little buddy thing, hot. Hot. I turned it on, but I couldn't stand having it on for more than like 15 or 20 minutes. Opened the sunroof all the way. The verdict, it's a great product. It might just be too hardcore for a minivan, or too hardcore for a minivan when the low temp is like 35 degrees. Where are we headed today? Viva Las Vegas. Day 2, headed east, Interstate 15, towards Las Vegas. This is the old Buffalo Bills casino near the Nevada state line. And there's the old roller coaster. I remember riding this roller coaster in the it must have been the 90s, but I hear for several years now the roller coaster hasn't been running. Read something about how it was really unsafe or something, but in the 90s it was a lot of fun. I've also heard and seen on YouTube videos that nomads sometimes stay here overnight in this parking lot, and it's daytime now and looks pretty fine, but I've heard it can be kind of sketchy. I don't know, but I just wanted to see it. I didn't film much of Vegas because I kind of zipped right through, and then got off the interstate at Highway 93 going north. This is a beautiful part of Nevada, really kind of barren. There wasn't much out there. My goal was to stay at a rest area on Highway 93, but the rest area didn't sit right with me. So as I was driving north, I happened to see a tiny RV park near Hyco, Nevada. And that's where I stayed for the second night. I saw this cute little RV park, and I was able to make a reservation online. They had a QR code you could click and make your reservation and never even get out of the car through a website called CampSpot. I was really impressed with that. I did pay $35, but I was okay with that because I plug into shore power and run my heating instruments all night long, and I was toasty and warm, and there was a beautiful view. What more could you ask for? This is my morning view. It is amazingly quiet here, and we are near Hyco, Nevada. This is just north of the Pahranagat wildlife area. It's actually beautiful. You know, I was coming up, driving north from Las Vegas, and it was just desert and hills, and then when you get far north enough, you just start climbing, and then when you get to this higher elevation, it's actually really beautiful. So I'm going to be exploring more today. This is where I really kind of changed course a bit. Originally, I was planning to travel farther north in Nevada, but looking at the weather, it was going to be really cold in the evening times. So instead, I first thought, I want to check out the ET Highway. This is Highway 375, but I was so enamored by the name ET Highway that I had to go and check it out. I think it might have to do with being somewhat close to Area 51. Just beautiful, quiet, windy. Beautiful. There's a fire off in the distance over there. I don't know if you can see that. Hey, look! There is an ET out there. Anyway, after driving a little bit on the ET Highway, I turned the other direction and started heading further east on Highway 93. And near a town called Caliente, I arrived at Kershaw-Ryan State Park in Nevada. I didn't take any pictures of the campground, but... Alright, it's beautiful here, but the wind is out of control. If I had hair, you would see it blowing in the wind. So we gotta get out of here. Beautiful. It's beautiful. Beautiful here in this campground. But rain, 50-mile-an-hour winds. Rain last night. 50-mile-an-hour winds. I'm out of here. So I looked on the map and I realized that I was about 100 miles away from Zion National Park, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity to see it. So I started driving east from the campground and drove into Utah. This was a really, really beautiful drive, and I ended up in Cedar City, Utah. And then... current situation, and it is snowing, okay? This California person is really not used to this stuff. Wow. After I got over the shock of being in the snow, I went into Walmart to get a couple things for my refrigerator, and then I headed south. I was back on Interstate 15, and very soon we got out of the snow. It got a lot warmer, and I made my way to Zion National Park. Now, I've been to a number of national parks in my couple years here on the road, and I have to tell you, Zion is breathtaking. It was amazing. And as you're driving up the canyon road into Zion, the scenery just gets more and more and more breathtaking. I was really blown away. Okay, I don't know how many times today I've said, wow. This is Zion National Park. And wow. All I can say is wow. Wow. You know, Zion reminds me a lot of Glacier National Park in that very narrow roads, 15-mile-an-hour speed limit, and lots of people. You may not see so many people in some of these pictures, but it was pretty crowded. And again, this is off-peak time of the year, so I can only imagine what it's like in the high summertime. I didn't have a lot of time to spend here, but I sat and ate my lunch in the van, snapped some pictures, and just kind of took it all in for a while. And then it was time to go. I would have miles to go before I slept that night, so unfortunately, it was time to leave Zion. Zion National Park. Everything that they say it is. Me and Betty here in Zion. All right, so today is Wednesday. And you know, this whole trip I've just been kind of playing it by ear, trying to be spontaneous, which is the exact opposite of how I normally am. I'm at a rest area on Interstate 40, and I like rest areas. So yeah, today is going to be more being spontaneous. Like I said, it's Wednesday. I don't even have to be back to work till Monday. So there's so many days and so many places that we could go. All right, let's go. So guess where we went next? Route 66 was nearby, and most of us old people know about Route 66. You can Google it and find out more about it, but I thought it would be fun to drive on Route 66. I had heard of a town called Oatman, and that was my next destination. Nice drive starting out, pretty straight, although quickly I could see going up into the hills, and it started getting really twisting and turning, and then you'll never believe what I saw. These burros or donkeys in the road. Look at that cute baby donkey or burro, and that guy in that car or truck, we both just kind of stopped, and I pulled out my camera. I had to get a picture of that. And you just kind of sit and wait for them to get out of the road. That as they kind of move to the other side of the road, then mama and baby almost look like they were going to approach my car. And this has to be the cutest picture that I took the whole trip. Mama with baby. And as it turns out, these burros are kind of everywhere, especially in Oatman, Arizona. But for the next hour or so, really challenging drive, very narrow roads. The quality of the road is pretty bad. And as I said, lots of twisting and turning. Most of the time, you're not going more than 20 or 25 miles per hour. The next thing that I saw was also very interesting, is this car just kind of sitting there. I guess maybe they left it as a lesson to everybody that you need to be careful when you're driving on Route 66. Finally, after, I don't know, like I said, maybe an hour of driving, I came to Oatman, Arizona. Driving through Oatman. This town is famous for their donkeys. They kind of hang out everywhere. People feed them. This is straight out of the Old West. So I definitely wanted to get out of the car and spend a little bit of time in Oatman. I did get to pet some donkeys, although I didn't decide to buy any food to feed them. Inside of the old Oatman Hotel, they have an ice cream shop, and I had an outstanding cappuccino milkshake. So walked around for a while, very touristy, but definitely a must-see if you ever get the opportunity to go to Oatman. Came out of Oatman and found myself just about to Laughlin, Nevada. About this time, I decided that I definitely wanted to take a little break from the road. Hotel rooms were plentiful, so I got a room for the night, had a nice steak dinner, actually also did some laundry and got some more groceries, and then... Okay, I don't know what day of the trip it is, but it's Thursday. Couple days left. I stayed in a hotel in Laughlin, Nevada. Very inexpensive hotel rooms, at least right now in mid-March. Their season, I guess, hasn't started yet. It's really nice. 65, 70 degrees. I know this place is hopping in the summertime, but I probably wouldn't want to be here when it's a lot hotter with a lot more people. So I thought it was perfect. Today we're headed towards Death Valley. I was there once, many years ago, in the 90s. And It's on my way home, so let's go see that. In order to get from Laughlin up closer to Death Valley, I did have to kind of go back towards Las Vegas, skirt around it, and then catch the Highway 160 north and went through Pahrump. Here's our rest area for tonight. Pretty close to Death Valley. Nice rest area. You know, there are times I would definitely say I prefer the mountains to the desert. But this night, out in the desert, Amargosa Valley, between Vegas and Death Valley, it was just beautiful. Quiet, clean rest area, a few other people there, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And across the street, there was a gas station. Truckers were staying there. I kind of like the sound of 18-wheelers. It's comforting. The white noise, you know, puts you to sleep. So I thoroughly enjoyed my evening here. But you're always a little sad when you know your trip is coming to an end. Quick morning view of the rest area. A little bit of coffee, a little bit of something to eat for breakfast. And I couldn't pass up the opportunity to snap this picture before I hit the road. This was at the gas station across from the rest area. And, you know, a lot of areas of Nevada, the Area 51 kind of theme. But I thought these guys were very entertaining. And look at the one sitting in the back having a smoke. So from the rest area, I headed south on Nevada Highway 373, which crossed the California state line, and then I hung a right and went west on Highway 190 into Death Valley. I wanted to visit Badwater Basin, which is the lowest point in elevation in the United States, but that road was having some construction, so I had to end up satisfying myself with Furnace Creek. Furnace Creek in Death Valley is at elevation minus 190 feet below sea level, which is pretty close to Badwater Basin. There was a lot of construction going on in the park. They had some storms these last couple years, and there weren't a lot of people, which was pretty cool. So I drove through, hung out a while, and I also got to see the Harmony Borax Works. Very cool remnants of an old borax works. You know, in Death Valley, the ground, you can see it looks white, and that's from naturally occurring borax. So driving west on Highway 190, once you leave Death Valley, it's a really beautiful drive going west on 190 to eventually reach Highway 395. If you're not from California and you don't know Highway 395, beautiful, beautiful highway that goes through California. So these are just pictures of moving west on Highway 190 and finally seeing the Eastern Sierras on Highway 395. And there it is, the sign. If I take a left, I could have made it home that day, but you know what? No. I didn't want to go home yet. So here's what I did instead. I drove south on 395, stopped in Ridgecrest for dinner, and then one more rest area, and had a nice evening. You know, there's always that feeling when you know if you're a part-time nomad, when it's the last night and you know you got to go back home. Yeah, it's a real mix of feelings. You wish it could go longer. You're grateful you can go back and have a nice shower in your own bathroom. All of those emotions kind of mix together. One other thing that I do on the last night of a trip is I make sure that the van is super cleaned up, everything's really tight, and that's to make it easier on the unloading process. Again, if you're a part-time nomad, that dread of having to unload the van after you get home, it's like, the last kick in the butt after already having to come home off the road. So, had a nice evening, had some food, watched a little TV, cleaned up the van, and the next morning, back to the sticks and bricks. Good morning. Saturday, headed back to the apartment. Spent the night at this really beautiful new rest area here. And it's very quiet. I actually like the sound of traffic. It puts me to sleep. I had a great time. I had a really great time. I really needed the break from work. Good practice in the van. You know, where to go, what to do, how to keep things organized. And I'm really excited for my summer trip. It'll be warmer. I won't need the hat and the neck muffler because it was cold. Never got below 30 degrees on any night. My reptile light heat emitter worked great. Heated mattress pad is money. Best money I ever spent. And I have some ideas for things that need to be, changed and improved. And that's always a really great part of a trip is, getting better at it and knowing what can improve. So, headed back to the pad, and I really had a great time. I'm really grateful that I'm able to do this at this point in life. And I really feel the roaming nomad in me being brought to life. Really grateful.